Over the last 9 months, we've experienced isolation, loss, and uncertainty.
The intimate sentence that caused Catherine to cry has just been revealed by Princess Anne. The most explosive aspect was not only what Camilla said, but also how long those remarks had been circulating behind Catherine's back while the royal family continued to smile beside her in public. The comment Camilla never thought Catherine would hear was repeated by and during a private meeting at Windsor Castle. Prince William reportedly became motionless, while Catherine's eyes filled with emotion and her hand moved to her mouth. But Princess Anne was not finished. She had revealed several remarks made in that room, with the most recent being so personal that William demanded to know how long the palace had kept the truth hidden. Camilla's betrayal was not simply that she disliked Catherine. Instead, it was that she had smiled beside her publicly while allegedly attempting to undermine her future behind closed doors. With no cameras, no announcement, and no warning, the meeting began as a quiet discussion about royal responsibilities. When Catherine arrived, she believed they would be discussing appearances, duties, and the monarchy's public image. Instead, Anne closed the folder in front of her, turned toward Catherine, and revealed that there was something she could no longer keep hidden. The conflict that followed was far beyond a typical family disagreement. According to reports, Camilla had questioned Catherine's strength in private, not her schedule, not a difficult week, but her ability to handle future responsibilities. People familiar with the conversation claimed that Camilla had said Catherine was too weak to carry the responsibility of standing beside William as the future king. Then another statement emerged. She allegedly suggested that public sympathy had elevated Catherine above the institution itself. At first, Catherine remained silent. She had raised 3 children, carried enormous public expectations, stood under intense scrutiny for years, and prepared for a future where she would one day lead the monarchy alongside William. Yet the words that broke her composure did not come from a headline, a critic, or the public. They came from within her own family. William turned to face Princess Anne and asked the crucial question: had Camilla been making these comments for months, or had she only said them once out of anger? Anne responded immediately. She explained that there was a pattern. That single answer changed the entire purpose of the meeting. According to Anne, staff members had heard different versions of the same message repeatedly. Catherine was gaining too much influence, and there was a belief that her popularity needed to be controlled. The concern was that Catherine's growing public support could overshadow the authority of the current reign. While some comments might have been dismissed, others were considered impossible to ignore. Princess Anne then placed a series of briefing documents on the table. She explained that the concerns had not remained hidden in private conversations. Discussions had taken place about reducing attention surrounding Catherine's public appearances. The amount of time she was given to speak had reportedly been reduced. Photo arrangements had been changed, and details of engagements had been altered without clear explanations. Because Catherine believed these decisions were made for practical reasons, she accepted each change without question. However, those adjustments now appeared to be part of something much larger. Camilla attempted to respond, claiming that her concerns about Catherine's well-being and stress had been misunderstood and turned into accusations of hostility. She did not openly argue, but reminded everyone in the room that she had privately warned Camilla against making disrespectful comments. Those warnings, she said, had been ignored. King Charles appeared surprised. He had heard concerns about workload and pressure, but not the accusations being presented by Anne. Meanwhile, William's frustration grew. He believed someone had been influencing decisions while keeping the most damaging remarks hidden. If King Charles had only been given a softened version of events, then the statement that had disturbed palace staff was finally revealed by Anne. Camilla had allegedly said that Catherine would eventually need to be replaced. Catherine's expression changed, and she lowered her gaze. The issue was no longer about well-being or concern. It was about influence, authority, and the fear that the future queen was becoming more powerful than anyone had expected. Hello, viewers. Did Princess Anne have the right to be honest with Catherine? Leave a yes or no comment below. And please don't just stand by and watch as Catherine is reduced to tears. By liking this video, sharing it with another royal supporter, and subscribing to the channel, You can show your support for Catherine and respect for Anne's courage in standing up for her. Camilla may have believed these remarks would remain hidden, but every like, share, and subscription sends a message that the public will not ignore what happened to Catherine. However, Princess Anne had one final revelation. Diana was involved. This raised a difficult question. Did Catherine's popularity truly belong to her, or was she simply benefiting from the public's lasting affection for a woman they had always admired? For one witness, repeating those words had been extremely difficult. Before bringing the matter into the room, Anne had hesitated. Catherine already sensed that something painful was about to be revealed. As William stood closer beside his wife, Camilla looked toward Anne. King Charles remained silent, and Catherine realized that the most painful part had not yet been spoken, even though she was already struggling to hold back tears. Anne turned toward Catherine, preparing to say the words that would permanently change the relationships around that table. The tension within royal life had begun months before the private meeting at Windsor. The palace struggled to manage the attention surrounding Catherine's return to public duties. People gathered to see her. Families called out her name. Children reached out to touch her hand. By sunset, every wave and smile had become a headline. But this was not the reaction Catherine had requested. It happened because the public had watched her face a difficult period while protecting her children and maintaining a sense of normal life. Her return felt personal, not dramatic, not staged, but genuine. And that authenticity gave her something the palace administration found difficult to measure: public trust. Everyone seemed to appreciate the attention she received. King Charles welcomed the warmth. William and Catherine remained close. Beside her, Camilla smiled for the cameras, but behind the public images, private questions continued to circulate.
Why?
Why did all of Catherine's appearances dominate the media? Why did coverage of King Charles and Camilla's engagements begin to decline? Why did a week's worth of announcements create more public emotion than a single quiet gesture from Catherine? No one openly expressed jealousy. They did not need to. The first changes were subtle enough to be dismissed. At one reception, Catherine's speaking time was suddenly reduced. At another event, her scheduled position beside King Charles was moved further down the line. In a briefing memo, the phrase "future queen" was replaced with "senior member of the royal family." Catherine's office was told the change was simply for consistency. She accepted it, and that allowed the pattern to continue. When an engagement schedule arrived late, Catherine did not complain. When a photo arrangement placed her farther away from William, she accepted it. She never questioned why approved details from the Wales household were being altered. She assumed the palace was simply balancing public expectations, pressure, and the need to maintain stability. But someone was paying attention. Princess Anne had spent decades within the institution. She understood the difference between genuine confusion and deliberate changes. She noticed when staff members began acting differently around Catherine. She noticed when private secretaries stopped responding directly. Most importantly, she noticed the same phrase appearing in unexpected places: public compassion. Anne first heard those words from an assistant during a quiet lunch. The account was cautious. According to the conversation, Camilla had expressed concern that public sympathy for Catherine was beginning to disrupt the balance within the monarchy. After hearing this, Anne asked whether the comment had been made out of anger. "No," the assistant replied. It had been said calmly. That answer stayed with Anne. A few days later, another staff member described a different conversation. This time, the wording was more direct. The insider recalled that people had begun viewing Catherine as the emotional center of the royal family and that her growing popularity was becoming a concern. Once again, Anne asked whether the comment was related to Catherine's workload or health. Once again, the answer was the same. The response was, "No, it has to do with influence." Princess Anne was still unwilling to react immediately. She understood how words could change as they traveled through the palace corridors. Before reaching another room, a statement could become softer, harsher, or completely lose its meaning. So, she waited. She watched. She compared what she had heard with what was happening around Catherine. Then, a third account emerged. Instructions had reportedly been given to rebalance attention. According to a senior assistant involved in planning appearances, Catherine should not always be the focus of attention. She should limit her remarks, while references to the future should be kept to a minimum as King Charles continued to define his reign. Camilla was not directly mentioned in any of those instructions. However, the wording appeared to match the private comments that had been reported. At that moment, Anne stopped viewing the situation as simple gossip. Rumors disappear, but patterns leave evidence. She began connecting the changes: the reduced speaking time, the altered photo arrangements, the delayed schedules, the removal of language connecting Catherine to the future. Each decision could be defended individually, but when viewed together, they appeared to show a clear direction. Someone was not simply reacting to Catherine's popularity. Someone was attempting to control it. Catherine remained unaware. She continued appearing in public with confidence, warmly greeting staff, and standing beside Camilla with the same respect she had always shown. Later, that image would become the most painful part of the situation. While questions about her influence and position were being raised behind closed doors, Catherine was publicly showing nothing but loyalty. Princess Anne now faced a difficult decision. If she spoke too soon, the palace could dismiss everything as a misunderstanding. She needed to be certain before revealing what she knew. If you wait too long, personal disagreements can eventually become official decisions. Then Princess Anne noticed the briefing document. Hidden beneath language about continuity and balance was a suggestion regarding Catherine's future ceremonial role. It proposed reducing her presence at certain official events as the palace reconsidered how much attention should be given to the Wales household. At the bottom of the document were 4 words: "Control the sympathies of the public," and read the phrase twice. Suddenly, she understood where the private remarks had come from. After reviewing the briefing paper, Anne remained completely still. Without drawing attention, she folded the document, placed it inside a blue folder, and carried it away. She knew the palace could survive rumors, but it would struggle when someone arrived with specific names and dates. She began quietly. The first person she spoke with was a senior household assistant, and asked one direct question. Did the comments about Catherine's popularity come from concerns about her influence or her health? The assistant paused. Then came the answer: influence. A second conversation took place during a private lunch with another staff member. That person recalled Camilla's comment that Catherine was becoming the center of the monarchy's public story. Not because Catherine was demanding attention, but because the public was giving it willingly. And that kind of affection was difficult to control. And asked the employee to repeat Camilla's exact words. 3 phrases were remembered: too fragile, too protected by sympathy, too visible for someone whose future role had not yet arrived. The statements were different, but the message appeared consistent. 3 comments, 3 separate moments. No written record. Yet the pattern was difficult to ignore. Catherine's health had become a reason to discuss something much deeper: strength, position, and timing. Princess Anne wanted to be certain. The third person she spoke with had helped organize a family gathering. Their account connected the private remarks with practical decisions being made behind the scenes. According to that employee, there had been pressure to limit how often Catherine appeared in public. Princess Anne began noticing a pattern. Catherine's appearances alongside King Charles were being reduced under the explanation of balance, but beneath that explanation appeared to be a different concern. Every time Catherine stood beside the king, cameras seemed to turn toward her. Every time she spoke, headlines followed. Every time she smiled beside William, it created a vision of the future that some believed the current reign was not ready to embrace. The realization came clearly to Anne. The issue was not Catherine's health. The issue was Catherine's influence and popularity. Before involving William or Catherine, Princess Anne decided to confront Camilla directly. After a planning meeting, once everyone had left the room and no staff members were nearby, Anne chose a private moment to speak with her. She did not accuse Camilla of jealousy, because that would have ended the conversation immediately. Instead, Anne asked whether Camilla had suggested that Catherine was too fragile for a greater role. Camilla responded by saying that personal concerns were being misunderstood. But Anne asked again, "Is that what you said?" In response, Camilla said that someone needed to consider the pressure Catherine was facing, especially at a time when public support for her was becoming stronger than traditional royal expectations. She argued that, at times, difficult words were necessary to protect the monarchy. Anne's expression did not change. She told Camilla that concern was one thing, but speaking about Catherine as though she were a problem that needed to be controlled was something entirely different. Camilla pushed back, claiming that Anne was allowing institutional judgment to interfere with family loyalty. She argued that public affection for Catherine did not determine authority. Popularity was not the same as preparation, and emotions could not guide the monarchy. That response revealed something important to Anne. This was not simply a misunderstanding. It was a belief. Princess Anne then gave a direct warning. Catherine's health should never be used as evidence of weakness. Princess Diana's memory should never be used as a weapon. And decisions affecting the Wales household should not be influenced by comments made about Catherine when she was not present to defend herself. The room became silent. Camilla then accused Anne of being overly protective and left without saying anything further. Hello, everyone. Was Princess Anne right to stand up for Catherine, or should she have remained silent to preserve palace harmony? If you believe silence would have only benefited Camilla, then Anne's decision was the right one. If you think the palace needed to see and defend Catherine, share your thoughts below. Like, share, and subscribe to this video right away. The whispers used against Catherine should be drowned out by public support. Nothing changed. There was no apology sent to Catherine's office. No correction was made to the briefing documents. No instructions were withdrawn. The palace continued as though Princess Anne's warning had never happened. Then Anne heard another comment. After the confrontation, a staff member reportedly overheard part of a private conversation. According to the account, Camilla had said that Catherine's role would still need to be carefully managed before William's responsibilities expanded further. She also suggested that Anne had become too involved. The warning had not worked. And what came next was even more concerning. The person sharing the information paused, turned toward the door, and asked Anne whether she truly wanted to hear the rest. Yes, Anne replied. Then Diana was mentioned. The statement suggested that Catherine did not completely control her own public influence, that a legacy she had not created was helping shape the way people viewed her. It implied that the love and admiration surrounding Catherine was borrowed, temporary, and could disappear once the palace made the necessary changes. Before hearing the final words, Anne already understood the meaning behind them. The suggestion was that Catherine was simply benefiting from Princess Diana's shadow. But Anne knew that this could not remain hidden forever. Private intervention had failed. Silence had failed. Even a direct warning had failed. No matter how painful it was, Catherine deserved to know the truth. So Princess Anne made one final decision. She would enter the Windsor meeting, close the folder, allow the official discussions to finish, and then reveal everything to Catherine. Not to hurt her, but to ensure that no one could continue damaging her reputation behind closed doors. The meeting began with papers and formal discussions, upcoming events, public messaging, and the future responsibilities of royal duties. Every topic sounded ordinary, and that made the sudden change in atmosphere even more intense. At the table, Catherine sat beside William. The central seat was occupied by King Charles. A folder remained open in front of Camilla, and said very little. She watched. She listened. She waited until the secretary finished reviewing the schedule. After that, everything was about to change. After that, the door closed behind him. In front of Princess Anne was the blue folder she had been carrying. As King Charles prepared to move on to the next item, and interrupted, "Catherine needs to hear something." Her voice was calm, but the statement carried weight. Catherine turned toward her. William immediately leaned back, while Camilla remained completely still, and began with the version that was easiest to accept. Concerns had been raised about the amount of attention surrounding Catherine. Not once, repeatedly. The concern, and explained, was that moments meant to represent the current reign were increasingly being dominated by Catherine's presence. Catherine quietly responded that she had never asked for special treatment or additional attention, and acknowledged that. But then she continued. The issue was not only attention. It was influence. Some people had questioned whether Catherine's growing prominence was happening too quickly. It had been suggested that she should remain less visible until the palace could regain control of the public narrative. William's expression changed. "Who suggested that?" he asked, and opened the folder and removed a single document. The meaning was clear, despite the careful wording. Rebalance your focus. Restrict future positioning. Review the ceremonial prominence of the Wales household. Catherine did not touch the page as she read the words. For months, she had believed the changes were simply logistical. A seat being moved, a shorter speech, an engagement being rescheduled hours before departure. Each moment had seemed too small to question. But now, placed together, she could no longer ignore the pattern. Camilla spoke first. She argued that planning documents were being interpreted as personal attacks. Every royal household had to consider public balance, timing, and visibility. No individual's popularity could be allowed to overshadow the institution itself. According to William, the important question was whether these decisions had considered Catherine's health. Any responsible planning process, Camilla responded, had to take pressure, recovery, and public expectations into account. Catherine turned toward Camilla. "Was my role reduced because of this?" Camilla denied that any role had been reduced. She said the changes were made to protect Catherine, princess, and closed the folder. The word that had been used was not protection. The atmosphere in the room became heavier. King Charles then asked, and to be specific, he had heard concerns about workload and pressure, but nothing that suggested something more serious was taking place. King Charles wanted to know how far the private remarks had gone. He needed to understand whether there was genuine concern about Catherine or something deeper. "Princess," and gave him the answer. It had been said that Catherine was too delicate. The statement had been hidden beneath weeks of administrative language and carefully worded explanations. The words landed heavily. Catherine's expression remained controlled, but the warmth disappeared from her face. Not yet. Not completely. But something had changed. William immediately asked when the remark had been made, and responded that it had appeared in multiple conversations. Camilla objected, arguing that the words had been taken out of context. She claimed that it was not Catherine as a person who had been described as fragile, but rather the situation surrounding her. She said that, considering the pressure Catherine had faced, it would have been irresponsible not to make adjustments, and did not argue over the wording. Instead, she revealed the next statement. Camilla had allegedly said that public sympathy was elevating Catherine above the institution itself. King Charles turned toward Camilla. "That is not language about scheduling," he said. "That is language about rivalry." Catherine remained silent, but her fingers tightened beneath the table. William's voice became calmer as he asked whether official decisions had been influenced by those remarks. King Charles explained that he had approved changes based on workload, balance, and practical considerations. He said he was unaware that anyone was questioning Catherine's importance or suggesting that her future role should be limited because of her health. But this clarification did not reassure William. Instead, it made the situation more serious, because before the information reached the king, it had already been filtered. Someone had taken personal concerns and presented them as simple administrative decisions. According to Camilla, there had been no campaign against Catherine. She claimed there were only difficult discussions about a monarchy under pressure, and that Catherine's popularity and responsibilities required certain boundaries. Princess, and asked one simple question. Who set those boundaries? Camilla remained silent. The silence itself became an answer. Finally, Catherine looked down. One tear fell, followed by another. The pain was no longer caused by a single insult. It came from realizing that ordinary moments from the past now carried a different meaning. Every unexplained change, every careful smile, every moment when she wondered if she had done something wrong. William moved his chair back slightly and raised a hand. But there was more to reveal, and explained that Camilla had not only spoken about the present, she had also discussed the future. She claimed that Catherine would eventually need to be replaced once the monarchy entered a different phase. The sentence filled the room with silence. Catherine's eyes filled with emotion. King Charles turned to Camilla and asked her to explain. Camilla responded that the statement was about constitutional order, not humiliation. And replied that such a phrase had no place in a discussion about constitutional responsibilities. Then she turned toward Catherine. The most painful words had not yet been spoken. Diana was involved. This time, no one interrupted Princess Anne did not rush the final revelation. She waited until everyone at the table understood that the conversation was no longer about public attention, royal rankings, or schedules. It was something much deeper. Something personal. Something connected to a part of Catherine's life that had followed her ever since she first stood beside William. Princess Diana. Slowly, Catherine lifted her eyes. William stepped slightly closer, making one thing clear: she would not face the moment alone. Then, Anne repeated the words exactly as she had heard them. According to Camilla, Catherine was only benefiting from Diana's shadow. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Catherine's expression changed. The tears she had been holding back finally appeared. The strength she had maintained through every previous revelation began to fade as her hand moved toward her mouth. The words had reached the deepest part of her. It was not simply about Diana's name being mentioned. For years, Catherine had endured comparisons connected to Princess Diana. But this statement felt different because it made every act of public kindness appear meaningless. Every cheer, every headline, every person who believed in her. According to the allegation, Camilla suggested that none of it truly belonged to Catherine, that it was only borrowed, temporary, and undeserved. William looked across the table. His anger no longer appeared sudden. Instead, it seemed controlled and deliberate. A calmness that carried even more weight. Without taking his eyes away from Catherine, he asked, "When were those words spoken?" Princess Anne answered carefully. The next detail was something no one expected. The comment was not made before and confronted Camilla. It came afterward. According to Anne's account, Camilla made the remark even after being clearly warned that Princess Diana's memory, Catherine's health, and her future role should never be used against her. The boundary had been crossed intentionally. King Charles turned toward Camilla and asked if she denied saying it. Camilla did not give a direct response. Instead, she argued that private conversations were being repeated without proper context. She claimed the statement was about public opinion and said that the palace could not ignore how Catherine's popularity was often compared to Diana's. Anne responded immediately. She pointed out that the phrase "put her back in her place" had nothing to do with public perception. Once again, the room fell silent. According to Camilla, the monarchy could not be guided by emotion alone. She argued that leadership required stability and that the expectations created by Catherine's popularity could not be ignored. She claimed that the monarchy could be weakened if the public began viewing Catherine as the central figure of the institution before William's future reign began. And in that moment, the real issue became clear. It was not simply about attention. It was about fear. Catherine lowered her hand. When she finally spoke, her voice remained steady, even though tears were still visible on her face. "How many?" Catherine asked how many people had heard the comments. Princess Anne informed her that the pattern was clear because enough people had heard different versions of the same conversations. Then Catherine asked the more difficult question. How long had everyone known? William turned toward her. There was more pain than anger in his expression. At that moment, Catherine was no longer asking about Camilla alone. She wanted to know how many people had stood beside her, smiled at her, accepted her kindness, and remained silent while the whispers continued. King Charles attempted to explain. He said he had not been aware of the full extent of the language being used. He had only been told there were concerns about timing, pressure, workload, and balance between households. Nothing more. Catherine then looked toward Princess Anne. Anne did not protect anyone. She explained that some staff members had been hesitant to speak. Others believed the situation would resolve itself. Some thought staying silent was safer than becoming involved in a disagreement between two royal households. A question filled the room. Safer for whom? William adjusted his chair. He wanted Catherine to leave. Away from the table. Away from the explanations. Away from Camilla. But Catherine stopped him. Not with anger. Not with a raised voice. With a simple gesture. She wiped her face, took a deep breath, and turned toward Camilla. For the first time that afternoon, the room no longer saw Catherine as someone who had been hurt. They saw her as the woman who would one day stand beside the monarch. Catherine calmly said that if people had genuine concerns about her health, they could have spoken to her directly. If there were questions about her workload, William could have been consulted. If changes were needed regarding her responsibilities, the Wales household could have addressed them openly. But this could not continue. Private judgment could not be disguised as protection. Personal feelings could not be hidden behind official language. And Catherine's own achievements could not be overshadowed by the memory of Princess Diana. Camilla responded that no one was trying to remove Catherine. A quiet sentence followed from Catherine. Then why did I become smaller? No one immediately had an answer. Because with every adjustment, every change, and every restriction, the same question remained unanswered. When King Charles finally brought the meeting to a close, Princess Anne remained seated. She still had one final piece of information to reveal. It concerned Catherine's ceremonial position. The issue was still mentioned in the briefing note. It remained inside the planning system, waiting for approval. William turned toward King Charles. Catherine looked toward Camilla, and opened the blue folder once again. The argument was over, but the decision had not yet been made. Princess Anne removed the document from the folder and placed it in front of Charles. This was not another vague note about balance or a draft speech. It showed that Catherine's name had been moved from the traditional position reserved for the woman who would stand beside the future king in a proposed ceremonial order for an upcoming state event. Charles read the page twice. The change was significant enough to send a message, yet subtle enough to be hidden behind protocol. Catherine would still attend. She would still smile. She would still appear in photographs. But the placement quietly suggested that her future role could be adjusted whenever another office felt threatened. William asked, "Who approved this?" No one answered. Camilla argued that planning documents passed through many hands and should not be viewed as evidence of one person's intentions. But Anne responded that the wording in the document matched the same language used in private conversations. The same message, the same concern, the same attempt to limit Catherine without ever confronting her directly. Silently, King Charles closed the folder. The plan would not move forward. He ordered that the Wales household must be consulted on any future decisions involving Catherine's responsibilities, ceremonial role, public appearances, and speaking arrangements. No private changes. No silent instructions. No last-minute adjustments without informing William and Catherine. It was not an apology. It was a boundary. Catherine sat quietly, gathering herself. Her composure had not disappeared, but neither had the tears. She turned toward Charles and explained that anything done without allowing the person affected to take part in the conversation could be seen as control. Camilla made one final attempt to explain that discipline was necessary for the monarchy. Catherine did not argue. Instead, she simply said, "Honesty should be the first step toward discipline." With that, the defense ended. William stood beside her. This time, Catherine rose with him. As Princess Anne watched them walk toward the door, Catherine did not look back at Camilla. Instead, she looked at Anne. There was no dramatic embrace, only a small nod. "Thank you." A moment of understanding passed between them. Then William and Catherine left the room together. Afterward, King Charles questioned whether it had really been necessary to reveal every comment. The private warnings had already been given and ignored. Silence had protected appearances, but it had not protected Catherine. Then Princess Anne delivered the statement that King Charles could no longer ignore. The palace owed Catherine honesty in private if it expected her loyalty in public. Charles turned toward the closed door. He could no longer pretend that this was merely a disagreement about scheduling or administrative decisions, regardless of his previous beliefs. A boundary had been crossed, and the person responsible for maintaining unity within the family had to accept the reality that there was not as much unity behind the public images as everyone believed. After that day, the atmosphere changed. Nothing appeared broken to the public. At the same events, Catherine and Camilla could still stand together. William could still walk beside Charles. Princess Anne could still enter a room without revealing everything that had happened. The monarchy continued doing what it had always done best, presenting stability. But behind that appearance, trust had changed. William stopped accepting unexplained adjustments from Camilla's office. Catherine no longer assumed that every change was harmless. And Charles finally understood that carefully softened briefings could sometimes hide personal intentions. Camilla also realized something she had not expected, and was willing to speak. More importantly, she was willing to tell the truth. The most significant thing about that meeting was not the disagreement itself. It was that Anne did not remain silent. She did not threaten anyone. She did not create a public conflict. She collected the words, followed where they led, and presented them to the people affected by them. There would be no more silence. The greatest pain for Catherine was not simply questions about her popularity. It was the realization that while she continued showing respect and loyalty, personal feelings had traveled through official channels. Yet the same meeting that brought her to tears also gave her something she had never had before: clarity. She now understood where the resistance was coming from. She knew which decisions needed to be questioned. She knew Princess Anne would not stand by and allow private whispers to become official practice. And she knew William had heard everything. Hello viewers, if you believe Princess Anne earned respect by standing beside Catherine when others remained silent, show your support. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more royal updates. Catherine was expected to simply smile, but those who stand beside her can make it clear that this kind of behavior will not be accepted. Because there is more to this story. The handwritten note next to Catherine's name, the state banquet seating arrangement that placed her 3 seats away from William, and the royal figure who ordered the change before guests arrived will all be revealed in the next video. That single detail could change everything.